The ground remembers, not in stories, not in monuments, but in something deeper, something that refuses to let it go. In Gettysburg, the past didn't simply happen, it detonated. For 3 days during the Battle of Gettysburg, the air was torn apart by gunfire, screams, and the collapse of a nation struggling to define its soul. More than 50,000 lives were lost. And some would argue, not all of them ever truly left. Because places like this don't just fade into history, they imprint upon it. Footsteps where no one stands, voices carried on an empty wind, figures seen in the distance only to vanish when approached. Not intelligent hauntings, not conversations, just echoes, residual, relentless, replaying moments of terror like a scar burned into the land itself. And that's where tonight's journey begins. Because this isn't just a history lesson, it's an investigation into what happens when trauma doesn't disappear, when it lingers, loops, and bleeds into the present day. And guiding us through that haunted terrain is a man who doesn't just read about the unknown, he goes looking for it. Kevin Lynn isn't approaching this from a distance. He's walked the fields, stood in the silence, listened when nothing should be speaking. A Southern-born explorer with more than 15 years in the paranormal field and a lifetime of personal experiences that refuse easy explanation. Kevin brings both curiosity and confrontation to the places most people would rather just visit and leave. He doesn't chase legends. He steps into them. Tonight, we're not just talking about Gettysburg. We're stepping onto ground that may still be fighting to be heard. That's next, right here on your home for the very best in paranormal talk radio. How do I know? Because it's my show, and it's our show. This is the Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney.
He won't float. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Good evening, my darklings. Here I am broadcasting live from inside the very haunted Palmer House Hotel, Restaurant, and Pub. Real quick little message for you in case you didn't hear about it. For those of you that have wanted to travel, maybe wanted to go see a haunted location like this, but it just doesn't seem to be in the cards for you. Well, I'm aware of how tight money is around the country right now, so I wanted to do something a little special. If you want to book an overnight stay here at the Palmer House on either a Sunday night, Monday night, or a Tuesday night throughout the month of May, you can do so for just $100 for the room or $150 for a jacuzzi suite. So bring a couple of your friends, have a great night or two or three for the cost of what you might normally pay for just one night here. And if you're lucky, I might be here doing a live podcast just like I'm doing right now. You could be a part of that. And then maybe we'll fade into the history of this building and go ghost hunting together. So if you're interested, give us a call, 320-351-9100. That's 320-351-9100. Take advantage of these deep discount savings and get a chance to come out and play right here at the Palmer House. Speaking of going out to play, something pretty exciting coming up here. In July at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. It is to help raise money for the Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors, for Leak, and for Dana's Pink Wishes. 3 fantastic charities and programs. So this weekend, all of the paranormal personalities like myself, Shane, Cindy, so many other great speakers are donating our time to be there, to meet and greet, hang out with you. We'll bring some cool swag so you can get pictures, autographs, shirts, and more. But it's a chance to come together for a great cause, and we're going to have a lot of fun raising money that weekend. They've got a lot of great things going on, including the Monster Mash at the Bash on July 24th. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Come dressed as your favorite monster. And who knows, maybe you'll win a prize, or you'll just get to hang out with me and Shane and Cindy and all the other great speakers that are there. That's a prize enough, don't you think? I do. All right, let's get to it. We've got our guest waiting in the wings, and history is waiting to be remembered, and he's here to help us with that. Kevin Lynn, he is the author of a book entitled Lost Souls of Gettysburg, Battlefields and Beyond. As a matter of fact, we have a link for that on today's program guide. So if you're listening to the show in podcast form, go look at the show notes. You'll see the link there. If you're watching live right here on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and make sure to subscribe. But then make sure to check out the link and get yourself a copy of the book. And let's all say it together. Don't just buy the book. Read the book, then rate and review the book, because that goes a long way to help out authors like Kevin Lynn. Kevin, welcome to the Paranormal 60.
Dave, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to meet you. And I'm glad to come on and have a conversation with you tonight.
Well, thank you. I've got to be honest with you. You and I did a little talk before we came on here tonight. Your microphone was fine. Suddenly you sound like you're underwater. So I don't know what's going on with the microphone, but we may need to have you change it out again or unplug and just go straight with the microphone on your iPad. We'll see how it plays out. This book, Gettysburg, and kind of diving into the history and the hauntings of this. Why now? Why did you feel this was a book you wanted to put out and release?
Well, Dave, I've been in the paranormal field for probably getting close to 20 years now. And I've always had a fascination with Gettysburg, primarily from the paranormal side of things, but also from a history standpoint. So
let's do this. I'm going to have to stop you for a second because I want people to hear what you have to say. We heard all of that, but it's very clipped and garbled. So I don't know if you want to try unplugging from it, and let's just see if we can go straight to the microphone on your Apple device there. Are you with us now? Nope, now there's no voice. So I'm going to do what I did in the pre-auth of the show. I'm going to boot you out of there and let you come back in, and hopefully we will get a better connection with you when you make it back. While he's gone, I'll just take a few more moments to mention another great event. This is coming up very soon, Parapsychon 7. I'm going to be there. It's at the old Mansfield Reformatory, the Ohio State Reformatory. If you saw the movie Shawshank Redemption, that movie was filmed right there at OSR, and we'd love for you to come on out. It's going to be an amazing weekend. It always is. Lots of great speakers on every topic, from Bigfoot to UFOs to ghosts, demons, and beyond. Parapsychon 7, May 15th through the 17th in Mansfield, Ohio. We hope that you'll come on out and spend some time with us. Remember, for all of the events I'm a part of, all you have to do is go check out my website, darknessevents.com. That's darknessevents.com. All right. Kevin Lynn is back. We can hear him now, clearing his throat, so we got a connection. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so you have this fascination with the history and the hauntings of Gettysburg. To do this book right, did you put yourself in the battlefield? Did you take yourself there? Or were you doing this off of research from documentaries and the things you've read online?
I immersed myself in the location, or multiple locations there in Gettysburg, for 3 days straight. Didn't do it alone. I did it with a friend of mine and somebody I believe you know. He's a guy from the South, just like me, named John Hodges from the Bama Boys.
Sure.
So yeah, he and I are best friends pretty much ever since like 7th grade. So he and I became kind of tag team partners in the old paranormal search to find our own answers, and we typically go out on a handful of hunts together, and this happened to be one back in 2023 in February. So we went based on just our excitement from wanting to visit Gettysburg and all the multitude of hauntings that are talked about, as well as the history aspect. We had 50,000 people, or 50,000 soldiers, that died there on the battlegrounds and in the town. And yet we only had one civilian that was recorded to have died there. So we wanted to go explore all of these locations, as many as we could cram in within 3 days, get our own answers, see what we can experience. And about a year and a half later, I thought, you know what? That was such a profound series of events and days there that I sat down and started writing, and it just kind of flowed out and flowed out and flowed out. And it was a wonderful experience because I was able to kind of relive every single one of those cases and my experiences with my friend while I was there. So that's kind of what prompted it. And here it is. We've got a book now.
Now, you hear about a place like Gettysburg, and you hear about the hauntings that take place there. How high were your expectations going in that you might actually have an encounter? As we know, the paranormal doesn't always work on our time schedule.
Right. You know, myself and John, whenever we typically go on haunts, a lot of people would say we're not just lucky, but we're extraordinarily lucky. I cannot count a single place that we've gone to that is purportedly haunted that we didn't get at least some significant activity at, or some sort of significant documentation of a haunting. So to say we had high expectations would be definitely accurate.
All right. You go into this, where do you start? I mean, there are so many rich areas and buildings and historical sites to visit. Was there one spot you wanted to start with?
Well, what we do is we typically try to line up a handful of investigations along with places that we think we want to stay. And the very first night we stayed at the Farnsworth house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had one of the probably more haunted rooms there, or at least we think it is. So I guess in a place like that, there's no such thing as one haunted room and the other one not being haunted. I think the whole place is going to be haunted. So we basically started our night off there, did an impromptu investigation, and promptly split up and started investigating certain sections of the interior and the exterior of the building.
For listeners that may not be familiar with the Farnsworth house, why was that a place that you wanted to start? What about it, and what's the history of the Farnsworth house?
You know, that was at one point during the battle there, that became, from what I understood, a Southern stronghold, a Confederate stronghold, and they used the attic portion of that as a sniper point. So they could survey the streets along that main road right there for any Union soldiers that may come by. And there's a pretty historic portion of the building where there's a big flat face wall with a tiny little attic window up there, and you can see all of that wall riddled with bullet holes. There's supposedly well over 100 bullet holes in that wall. So that was one of the main reasons we wanted to stay there, of course, with also many, many claims of people seeing and interacting with spirits there. So that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to stay there.
I did one investigation at the Farnsworth house many moons ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I was stuck in the attic of the Farnsworth house for the entire night. And, you know, doing EVP work and trying to get things to coordinate. And we got some interesting stuff, but probably the last part of the night was super hot up there. Super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had probably sweated off about 90 pounds just in body weight and water that night. But at the end of the night, you kind of run out of things to ask. This was like hour 5 of the ghost hunt.
Okay.
And we stood, and it was a small group. We all stood huddled in this little circle, and I held my recorder out in the middle of our group. And I'm like, did it hurt to die? Can you tell me what those last moments were like, and then what it felt like where you were going next? Is there a heaven? Is there a God? Is there any message you have for us about what death means? You know, I'm trying to get deep and esoteric. We play it back. I'm not getting any answer until I get to, is there a God?
Oh.
Very, very clearly from amongst us, right in the middle of the room, right where that recorder is, you hear it go, no. And I went, whoa. We hit stop. I rewound it, played it back, hear all the questions, and then I get to, is there a God? Silence. So what we heard was direct voice phenomena, not EVP, and it answered in that moment, freaked all of us out effectively. That was pretty much the end of our ghost hunt up at the old Farnsworth house, Kevin.
Yeah, direct voice phenomena is incredible. So for you and a handful of people to experience that in the attic was pretty incredible, I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was very bizarre. But what were your experiences there?
You know what we did? Our investigation was not very long lived there because we had so many places that we were trying to cram in within a 3-day period. But like I mentioned, we kind of split up. But before we did that, we were in our room, and I can remember us breaking out a bunch of our gear there on the bed. And John's running a little EVP session. I walk down the hall and I come back and he's kind of like yelling at me. He's like, come here, come here, come here. And he plays this lady just like almost screaming or moaning. And he says, I actually heard that in real time, direct voice phenomenon. So we do that and he plays it back. And then we start hearing more audible things to ourselves while he's playing that recording back. So that was the actual start of our night. And we weren't even there more than 20 minutes. Then we split up. You know, he went up towards the attic. I went outside by the wall. And I started getting pretty substantial audible things happening there while I was in front of the wall. He started hearing walking and things and kind of knocking on that little door area right beside the attic. So we had a handful of kind of, I guess what you might say, typical type of events happening, paranormal events. You're audible, a little bit of shadow play. I think I actually saw a shadow kind of walking near the street down there while I was by the wall as well. So some of your typical things you might have experienced.
I'm going to have you check your audio again. All of a sudden, you just started going into that crackly sound. So maybe pop onto the little settings wheel at the bottom of your screen, see if you can pop in and out of the microphone and see if there's something you can do to get those settings going. I totally recommend people, if you have not had a chance, Gettysburg is truly one of the most atmospheric locations. It's gorgeous, beautiful landscapes, beautiful places to visit, so many historic sites. As a matter of fact, Jackie McCord says, loves Gettysburg, the battlefield, cemetery, Jenny Wade House, Farnsworth Inn. The feelings there are intense. The museum, the orphanage, many places to see, and feelings of hair standing up on your arms at Devil's Den. Yeah, that's a really good little encapsulation, Jackie.
She nailed all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That is kind of the vibe you get there, and it's off-putting, right? Because it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, rolling grasses and hills and landscape, and then at night, strange things happen.
Fog settles in. It changes, has a whole different feeling. Yeah.
We
happen to be there. I'm sorry, Dave. We happen to be there.
I was going to say, you can hear people. You can hear what sounds like gunfire sometimes, and people yelling in the fields. But go ahead.
I was just going to say a similar thing. We heard gunfire at not the Sachs Covered Bridge, but there's another bridge about a half a mile down the road that a lot of people don't know about. It's just kind of an ordinary looking bridge, kind of steel structure. And we heard residual gunfire there on 2 occasions when we went. We even heard cannon fire.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Patrick Burns, and his wife, Marley, were staying at one of the campgrounds there, and they were doing some recording in their RV, and they were just talking about their experiences. When they played it back a few times during the recording, you would just hear boom, boom, and it was just, they heard nothing while they were recording. And it's like, I can't even begin to tell you how unsettling that was to hear the gun fodder or the cannon fodder over the top of them talking.
You know, it's cool too. We had instances where we heard it audibly, and other times when we didn't hear it, but it was captured, you know, on our audio. And we, for, you know, the sake of, you know, proving ourselves wrong, we went and did research to see there's not going to be any reenactments in February. We figured that out. Deer hunting season wasn't happening. So it wasn't, you know, rifle fire, it was musket fire. So we kind of tried to check all the boxes to make sure what we were hearing was actually residual fire.
Well, right. I don't believe they allow you to, there's no reenactments that take place at night.
No. Well, we actually talked it during the day also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Farnsworth House obviously lives up to its expectations. Yeah. What was the next stop on your journey?
We went to Sachs Covered Bridge that same night. We went out to Sachs Covered Bridge. We were out there until probably at least 2 o'clock in the morning. The only bad part there was it was a very windy night, but we were able to capture some pretty good stuff that when you look in the book here, I have a little insert in there about when I was at one end of the bridge and John was at another end of the bridge. We actually got a little bit of camera footage, I think I put a still shot in there to kind of show you where it happened. John walks near the railing at the end of the bridge, and on a video I've got, you can see a shadow reach out from by the railing and almost try to grab him.
Wow, really?
So
and you've got that little
really
insert
cool.
in the book?
Yeah.
Very cool. What was his reaction to that? Did he know about that in real time?
He didn't know it was happening. You know, I found out about several months later when I was kind of looking back through some of my footage. And I'm like, holy crap. Literally, there's something reaching out, trying to grab him right there.
That's pretty cool. Cool and scary, right? Because we partly like to believe that this is just a residual haunting, that there is nothing more there than just the scar tissue of a bloody battle that took place over a period of days. But there is something eternal. There is something still living in that mist that supersedes just the memory or trapped memory. What do you think that is? Is it the ethereal? Is it the elementals of the land? Or do you think that some of those souls have broken free from the residual loop and are clawing their way into our timeline?
In that instance, I felt like we also got some intelligent conversation that was recorded. I think that we had some soldiers that had not crossed over. They were kind of stuck in that little area right there, whether we call it purgatory or what we might call it, but they were stuck in that loop right there near that bridge. And they were reaching out to us, trying to communicate in whatever fashion that might be.
You see something like that for yourself and didn't see it in the moment. So does it hit differently when you go back and you just review these things as you're kind of going through your memories and then see a piece of evidence you didn't even notice at the time that you captured?
Yeah, especially when you kind of review it one time over, maybe you weren't really paying as good attention. And then a few months later, like when I'm sitting here writing the book, I go through everything piece by piece very carefully. And I pick that out and I say, whoa, you know, we felt like we didn't get quite as much activity as we thought, you know, we were experiencing. But unbeknownst to us, there are entities or, you know, spirits trying to interact with us. We just didn't see it, didn't hear it.
Let's do this. We're going to just take a quick break. And when we come back, while we're doing the break, Kevin, you're going to need to re-loop again because you just started to go back into crackle mode. So we will try to get the Rice Krispies out of his hand so that we can finish this interview properly. We'll be back. We've got a lot more to discuss. This is an amazing topic, an amazing time. And again, come out and join us at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash that's going to be taking place in July 24th through the 26th. Just look up Gettysburg Battlefield Bash on Facebook. You'll find all the information about it. It's extremely inexpensive to be a part of this event. I think it's like $25 or $35 for the whole weekend. Come on out, be a part of it. Help raise some money for some great causes. We'll be back with more right after this. Are you ready to step beyond the veil? June 11th through the 13th, something extraordinary is happening. Break On Through, a 3-day paranormal experience hosted by me, Dave Schrader, at the historic and haunted Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, Minnesota. I'm bringing together some of the most respected psychic mediums and paranormal minds for a weekend that explores the unexplained. Featuring special guest psychic mediums Chris Fleming, Diet Renee, and Sarah Lemos. This immersive event goes far beyond lectures. Dive into fascinating classes, presentations, take part in hands-on experiments, experience powerful live gallery readings, and join real paranormal investigations. So whether you're searching for answers, curious about the unknown, or hoping to connect with something beyond this world, this weekend is designed to open doors you never knew existed. 3 days, incredible guests, paranormal exploration, and more fun than should legally be allowed. Space is limited, so reserve your spot now. Visit darknessevents.com for details and tickets. That's darknessevents.com. Come explore the unknown and break on through. And we're breaking on through right now to the Lost Souls of Gettysburg, Battlefields and Beyond. That's the name of the book by Kevin Lynn, Lynn. We do have a link up for that book. Remember, go buy the book, read the book, rate and review the book. Get the word out about this as well. You know, it's a great time of year to buy a book for a friend just because. I mean, you just missed Halloween. That's the exact halfway point between now and Halloween, Kevin, for those of the uneducated watching. Halloween just passed us the other day. So here we are. That'd be a great book just to buy for people in that case. But if you have any, listen, history is not being taught the same. Kevin, in my little town of Sauk Center, I tell people when they come in and are you going to still embrace the paranormal at this hotel at that Malarkey? And I said, I'm certainly going to embrace it because history is being lost every day. And people just don't have the same fascination for learning that they used to. But I said, in all honesty, and I asked this of large tables of people, how much can you tell me about the Civil War? Other than it was fought, you know, North against the South, brother against brother, all over slavery. That's the only part people seem to take from this story, right?
Right.
And I said, but what if your history teacher would have started off with, do you know that one of the most haunted places on earth are right here in the United States? In Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. One of the bloodiest battles ever fought. Have you guys ever heard about this? Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'm going to tell you one of the most famous ghost stories. How many more of us would have sat up a little bit more in class or leaned in a little deeper and maybe taken away something else besides it was North against South, brother against brother, right? It might have entrenched itself. And I think this is a great way to teach history, is giving the history, but giving it with a payoff, right? It's giving you a little something extra to learn about these moments. So I applaud people like you that take these time to write these books, to visit these sites, get the history, get the mystery, and share them both. So thank you for doing that, Kevin.
Absolutely.
All right. Where else would you like to take us on your little journey that you covered in the book? And was there anything, I'm just curious, were there any things that you left out of the book that you were like, there's just not enough meat on the bone, but we did have one cool experience? Did any of those things happen?
You know, I pretty much tried my best to include every little experience we had,
Okay.
even to the fact of when we were staying at the Tilly Pierce house. This has nothing to do with us investigating, but I put this in the book that, okay, we're getting up that next morning and we're taking a shower. I'm undoing my, suitcase back here. It's completely packed with stuff. I flip the lid back down. I go take a shower and I come back and it's open and there are a pair of socks neatly placed right on the side of the bag. I'm like, how did that happen? So that's one of those types of things that tends to happen to me quite a bit, actually. So those are little tidbits that have nothing to do with the Gettysburg, nothing to do with the paranormal investigations, but it's still spiritual, and it was really neat.
What about the fear factor element? I've been to quite a few sites. Sometimes I get I think uncomfortable feeling is a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I feel frightened, but I will feel emotional or overwhelmed. And you get that kind of creep factor, but I can't put it on like, I'm not afraid I'm going to see the headless horseman. I'm not afraid I'm going to see something demonic crawling through the field. I don't know if it's just the empathetic side of me picking up on the fact of this tragedy and how these were young boys and young men who lost their lives in battle, and innocence was lost. So much was lost during that time in our history that I kind of feel like that's the overwhelming sense. But did you ever feel afraid at any of these locations?
Yes. The orphanage would be one of them.
Okay. Well,
So
let's talk about that.
Yeah, we did. I think it was the very last day we were there. We were scheduled to visit the orphanage. And before I go in, I tend to do a little protection kind of prayer for myself once in a while.
Sure.
And we step into the place to meet our guide. And he happens to live right upstairs in the same building. So he goes and proceeds to tell us a little story about two little haunted dolls that his sister had bought for him and that he had for a while. And he goes to, kind of proceed to tell about all the little things that had happened in his apartment upstairs with things moving around and stuff. And so little things like that kind of as a precursor, set the feeling a little bit before the night even started in the orphanage. So there's the tale of, I believe her name is Rosa, which was the kind of headmistress there at the orphanage that looked over the children there, and she was pretty cruel and would take some of the children that weren't behaving and chain them to the wall down in the basement. And they even had that little kind of cutout in the utility tunnel where there's a little pit back there where she'd also discipline them and put them back in that little hole and make them sit for sometimes upwards of a day or two without food. And that's when the emotional part starts to come out of me. You know, it's like we're not talking about, you know, adults in battle and stuff right now. We're looking at little children being abused, and who knows if any of them passed away while we're there, but those emotions were imprinted, especially down in the basement.
Oh, that is overwhelming. I mean, could you almost feel that energy of them there, of that terror that they were experiencing?
Absolutely. I could feel the terror part, the longing to go find another adult, and also the hatred that was being pushed off from what we felt like may have been her entity or another kind of nasty entity that may have come in to probably take on that emotion and feeling that was kind of left there.
I'm going to need you to play with your audio again and get reset. We're getting a bit of that choppy. For those of you watching or listening to the podcast, I know I'm watching some of the chat and people have been there having experiences of their own. I'd love to hear about them. Go ahead on today's YouTube channel after the show and share a little bit of your story. If you have photographs, video, images, put a link up so we can follow those as well. But you can also email me, dave@paranormal60.com. That's dave@paranormal60.com. Share your Gettysburg stories with me. I'd love to read and see what you guys had happen. And just wanted to throw that out there because I'm always interested to hear about the experiences more than just a sentence in the chat room, to see what you guys actually had happen and what your theories are on why battlefields retain this energy. Is it the spilled blood, that energy that's still being held by the earth itself? Or is there something else behind what's taking place? Kevin Lynn is our guest this evening. His book is Lost Souls of Gettysburg, Battlefields and Beyond. And you said a little bit earlier that you think that there are just some souls there that just have not crossed over, have not let go. Do you think that they think they're still in battle? Do they still feel like they're holding their field in allegiance, or just fearful of what comes next because of the atrocities that they were a part of?
Dave, I actually think there may be layers of human spirits there that may be before, during, and after that wartime. We were running into, a couple of spirits there at Devil's Den through some of the communication that we were getting. They didn't seem to be involved with the war, because you're hearing a son, a dad, and the mother all speaking right there, talking about his papa had died, didn't say how, the mother speaking with them, and we were almost wondering if they were even involved in the war, if it was before, during, or after. And then, with the orphanage.
And could it have been that standing at that site was a family that came to see the battlefield, and they were there 5 years ago talking about this, and they were so impacted by what they were seeing and experiencing or feeling in that site that they actually lent a page of their emotion to the book that is Gettysburg?
Exactly. Or maybe it was a family that came out to the site just a few weeks or so after the battle had finished, and they're witnessing all the bodies that are laying there, because they obviously couldn't bury 50,000 people that quick. Maybe they're going through that experience seeing these people there. So who knows how all this time stuff works. But I do believe that there are a multitude of layers and time of spirits that are walking the earth right now over there.
All right. Where do you want to take us next on your journey?
Let's go to the Jenny Wade house.
Okay. Now remember, folks, we're just scratching the surface on these stories as well. There's a lot more meat to each one of them in the book. So you'll be able to read the book and learn a lot more.
I'm going to parallel the Jenny Wade house with a little piece of it with the little museum there that's the Haunted and Cursed Objects Museum. I'm not sure if you're aware of that place or not, but
no.
It is a gem. It's a place that's not too well known, but it was amazing. But we went to the Jenny Wade house. Actually, I take it back. We went to the museum first during the same day, and we went to tour it. It's just a little small, little 2-story house. The first floor of the building is kind of a novelty shop with, herbs and spices and things like that. It's called Spooky's Cauldron, and the same person actually owns and operates the museum upstairs. So upstairs, we just basically did a little tour. We didn't actually have an investigation, but we did the little tour. And the guide will walk you through 3 different rooms. 2 of them are dedicated to anything and everything about the Civil War, objects that were used during the Civil War or taken out of houses in Gettysburg during that time. And then the 3rd room is a room that is dedicated to haunted and cursed objects that aren't necessarily from Gettysburg. They come from places all over around the world, actually. So we started there in the Gettysburg section. And while we were there, I kind of picked up on a name and a little boy while I was there by the name of Daniel. And I just happened to ask the tour guide, do you have a little spirit that walks through here by the name of Daniel? And she's like, I'm not aware of that. So we continue to make our way through the museum, and basically we were able to do a little psychometry experiment while we were there. They had a couple of boards strapped to the wall over there, and the lady that was running the tour kind of stood in front of the little plaque that described them, so we couldn't see what it was. So John and I both were asked to place our hand on 1 or 2 of these little boards and tell her what we felt. And John said he didn't feel too much other than he felt like a heartbeat, feeling when he touched the board. And then when I put my hand up on one of those boards, she says, can you tell me what you feel and see? And I said, well, I can automatically see slicing and cutting happening across my hand. And then, I can actually feel like I can actually feel a little bit of that happening. And she goes, well, you've just put your hand on one of the boards where they would perform amputations on some of the soldiers in a field hospital nearby.
Wow.
So that was a successful psychometry experiment right there. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then she allowed us to do some audio recording while we were in there. And we had our audio recorder sitting on a little desk or something. And as we were about to walk out, that audio recorder just jumped itself right off and into the floor. And I happened to be recording. That was John's recording device, and I happened to be recording also. And I've been able to go back and track there were 2 female spirits talking right when it happened, and they actually claim knocking that other recorder off the desk while we were in there. So that was a cool little thing happening. So we kind of made our way through the museum, but I was most curious and interested to go into that cursed object session. And as soon as we walked in there, the lady says, I want you to just pick out an object in here that draws you to it more than anything. And John picked out a little ornate wooden box with beautiful carvings on it. He says, I need to know what that is. And then I saw an object in the corner. It was just a circular item about yay big, and it had a black cloth wrapped around it and just bindings all around it. And I'm like, the most basic object in there, but I had to know what that was. And she described both of them. She goes, okay, those 2 objects, she goes, those objects seem to fight for supremacy and power within this room right here. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? She goes, we get more activity when we investigate this room off of those 2 items than anything else in here. And we drew in on those. The one was what we would actually call, I guess, a Dybbuk box of some sort. It was brand new, and they had only had it in there for a few weeks, so they hadn't been able to investigate it themselves, the owners of the museum. So they were still learning about it. And then the circular item, was actually a mirror that had been bound and clothed and had a cloth over it, and it came from the Smurl house.
Oh. Sure.
So that was the object.
But people that don't know, the Smurl house is part of the last Conjuring movie, the Smurl family that had that massive haunting that involved neighbors, police, everybody were there to witness the strange things that were happening there.
So that most ordinary object is what drew me to it. And they said they have investigated it before where they can actually see hands pushing up against the fabric and back. And she wouldn't let us touch it or get near it. And I kind of understand why. So the Smurl haunting to me is one of the, over the years, you know, I've read Ed and Lorraine's book, and that is one of the most fascinating stories of all of their investigations that they've been involved in. So that was really cool to be able to see that object there. And while we were there, John started getting extremely nauseated to the point where we nearly had to leave the room. And then as we finally left the room, I started getting nauseated a little bit too, but we were feeling like maybe one or both of those objects was causing him to feel, you know, some sort of empath type of ability to where he was getting nauseated from it. And there was one other object in there that was very fascinating to me too, and it was a little key, and it was in a case, and it was surrounded by salt, and it had supposedly come from somewhere in the ground at one of the parade grounds where Hitler held one of his big famous speeches.
Oh, wow.
So they said they've seen that key move around in that case in certain places until they actually encircled it in salt. So that one room alone warrants myself and John going back to investigate, because you can actually do investigations in that museum.
Very cool. I'll have to visit that while I'm in Gettysburg. I'm going to need you to tweak your audio again while you do that. Let me mention to people, May 21st through the 24th, right here at the haunted Palmer House Hotel, Restaurant, and Pub, the reunion you've been waiting for. The team from the Holzer Files, Ghosts of Devil's Perch, Paranormal Mysteries, Shane Pittman, Cindy Keza, and me, Dave Schrader. We're going to be together again. The only time we'll all three be together in Minnesota this year. We'd love for you to be a part of it. Paranormal investigations, presentations, gallery readings, ways to tap in. You're hearing these amazing stories from Kevin Lynn about psychometry, about the connection to the other side through these different kind of styles of paranormal investigating. This is your chance to be a part of that. Again, at the historic and haunted Palmer House Hotel right here in Sauk Center, Minnesota. Only a handful of tickets still remain. Darknessevents.com is the name of the website. You can find all the information on all the events that I'm going to be a part of. And you can investigate the paranormal with me, Cindy, and Shane. Just check out darknessevents.com. All right, Kevin, hopefully we can keep your, it's like cyclical. It's like about every 8 minutes or so, suddenly your audio just starts to get kooky. So right when you're in a good story. Yeah, it does this while you're talking. So I'd like to blame it on the paranormal, but it's probably just, connection. But I'm glad we still have you here.
About every day, so.
All right. Well, let's jump into another one of your stories. What else have you got?
Okay, I'll spin off of that, the orphanage place, and go over to the Jenny Wade house, which you investigated that night. And I'll make this one a little bit quicker, but the Jenny Wade house is just fascinating. And you know, right when you walk in, the stairs creak and crack, so that kind of gives you the ambiance that you're already in a haunted house. But we had some amazing experiences while we were there, and at one point, we kind of split up, and John was down in that kitchen area where Jenny had passed, and I was upstairs in the 2 bedrooms upstairs, the 2 main ones where the wall is broken apart.
Right.
So I decided to do like a little portal session by myself and literally sit right in the middle of the wall that was broken out. So I did a little portal session and did a little audio session also. And right when I was about to start reviewing it, I looked up to my left and I saw a little boy standing right in front of the mirror over there. Boom, really fast, a little apparition. And I was like, holy shit, who was that, you know? So that was an amazing experience to me. So I kind of, from that point, I got up and I kind of just creeped down the stairs to John and kind of tell him what was going on. And I was still standing on the stairs, and he was having a conversation with me from the kitchen area. And he just, for some reason, happened to look over his shoulder. He looked through the front room of that same first floor area and watched an apparition of a little boy walk in front of the windows on the outside. Could it be a real person? We don't know. So we did our own little investigating when that happened. But right when it happened, he ran up to the front, and I heard a voice at the door where the bullet holes are on the exterior of the building, that those two bullets that are coming through that front door.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a person standing right there, and they said, Jenny Wade's the only civilian that ever died in this war. I'm thinking, there's a tour person out there. It's got to be. I looked out the window real quick because I took 2 steps right off that landing where the stairs were, looked through the curtain, and we did our own little experiments to, see how quick somebody could get away from where I was. And we couldn't debunk it based upon some of the timing. And, thank God we were all running on audio and video, because later in the night we got whoever the little spirit was that was walking in front of the window claim, they caught us, they saw us. So we believe to have seen 2 apparitions that night, and it was pretty amazing. And they both happened within about a 3 or 4 minute time span in 2 different locations of the house. So that spirit, I came to find out later, I did some more audio, and this links that little boy that I saw upstairs with the name and the little vision I got at the museum. His name was Daniel. Somehow he was visiting over at the museum, and I visually saw him there upstairs in the Jenny Wade house. So,
A bit of a
little 9
hitchhiker.
to 10-year-old boy.
Spiritual hitchhiker. We're going to take our final break of the night. We'll come back. I'd like to know about that. After going into places like this, so deeply entrenched in all different facets of the paranormal, what happens when you leave? Are you heightened by what you've experienced? Do you feel that maybe there were some of the spirits of Gettysburg that came with you? We'll find out a little bit more about that when we return right here to your home for all things strange and supernatural. I'm Dave Schrader. This is the Paranormal 60.
Did you know that radio just got a little extraterrestrial? That's right, Dave Schrader is back on radio with the Paranormal 360 every Sunday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Central on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station. Just download the Odyssey app and look for the WCCO logo, follow the station, and listen live. That's the Paranormal 360 on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station.
Welcome back to the program. And remember, if you love the paranormal and you just can't get enough of it, and you think, well, I need more, you've got Paranormal 60 live Monday nights here on YouTube. You've got Paranormal 60 News live here on YouTube Wednesday nights. And for those of you listening to the audio, that's Tuesday and Thursday, you'll get those audio bits. Now you can hear me another night. That's Paranormal 360. I'm on WCCO Radio, and you can subscribe to that podcast version wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Just go look Paranormal 360 and subscribe now. Remember to rate, review, and like those as well. Before the break, I threw to Kevin the concept of being in these places for so long, experiencing so much activity. Does that ever come with you after you leave places like this and you've been there for so long?
Yeah, David does. Unfortunately, I have another gift that I don't really tell too many people about. I am also a medium.
Okay.
And I tend to do my best to ask them not to follow me. But I seem to have a line outside the door on most days. And I literally only do one thing as a medium, and that's spirit rescue. So I probably tend to bring things home way more often than the average person would. But yeah, that's something I deal with often.
When you do spirit rescue, walk me through that a little bit. What exactly does that entail? I know I do a lot of prayer, but I can't see things. I can't sense them to know that anything I'm doing is of any help.
Well, for me, it's different every single time. And that's really based upon the spirit, how willing they are to move on. They may be asking for help, but they may be, a little timid, or they may have real reservations about leaving where they are, even though they're not happy in this in-between space, because they have no picture or idea what it's like on the other side. So for me, will tend to work with the spirit. If I know something's around me here, we'll start doing some things to try my best to identify that person. Sometimes they'll show me how they've passed, and then we're able to work through some of that trauma, and then create a kind of a safe space for them. And that's where I go and start working with my particular spirit guides to aid me along with prayer to get them to cross over. So that's kind of the quick, dirty way of kind of explaining it. But I usually can't just say, oh, hey, there's one I'm hearing him say, help me. It's not that simple. Usually I tend to need to get a bigger picture of it, and then kind of settle myself into a little bit of a meditative state, work through quite a bit of prayer, ask my guides and the loved ones, their loved ones that might already actually be on the other side, to come to the edge of the light and help escort them in.
Now, just so we can clear it up, because I know I'm going to get emails about Dave. As he was talking about saving them, I could hear a child spirit yelling, help, help, help. You have a dog in the background, right?
Yeah, and that was the whole reason I was wearing these earlier.
Sure.
I don't have one, I've got 4 dogs.
Oh, my. Well, listen, it's been good so far. Your dogs are very polite and have towed the line for the night, so I appreciate that. Do the ghosts that you come across, especially ones that seem lost or frightened, do they try to scare people? Are there spirits who actually try to get us freaked out on purpose? Or does it just seem that, people just react differently because they're not expecting something? And then when they're confronted by the reality that we do live beyond this physical form, it's unnerving for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it takes a true understanding of what we may envision they're living through on the other side. Because for someone that has never experienced anything paranormal, and all of a sudden they hear something interacting with them, they can't make sense of it. So for them, it's scary and evil, because one, they may not believe in spirits to start with, and all of a sudden now they're being put in a place that they're not comfortable with. So for me, I'm usually sorry about my dog. I'm always startled, that first little piece of contact that I get with a spirit in my house or walking down the street or in the grocery store. It's just that initial kind of attention grab they're trying to get from me, is that, hey, I'm here. We're going to start working to push you along to help me here. But for the average person, yeah, I think all ghosts are probably scary for most people. And there's only a little particular amount of them that are scary to me, and those are the inhuman ones. So, and I've had more than enough experiences with them too.
Do you believe that any of those quote unquote inhumans were human at one point, but out of years of being tied to a location for fear, whatever it was, does it mutate and morph them into something inhuman because they've lost touch with that piece of who they were?
That's a good question, Dave. I'm not really sure I can answer that, but I can believe in that theory for sure. You could find somebody, let's just say Adolf Hitler or something like that. Such an evil person that does that entity in itself form something more evil that may be considered inhuman. Maybe. But for me, I have experienced more of, I guess you'd call maybe elemental type spirits. And then I think I would probably say I've experienced, not just on the elemental side, but the things that have names to them too, within biblical realm. Yeah.
But inside, work on your audio again while I pose this next question, if you could. I am curious about that element too, is that, especially in primal situations like war-torn areas, are we coming across something demonic? Or is it that berserker rage, that fear that's been elevated so high in somebody running face first into battle, knowing that what they're doing is taking lives and fearing for their own, and then their life ends? Is it really demonic, or was it that bloodlust version of humanity that's stuck in that loop?
So maybe like that internal negative energy burst that comes out of this berserker person, can that form into its own entity? I think that is very plausible.
Deb from Sac says, I believe our souls are eternal, and not every human has a soul. Maybe they're the evil ones. That's something to consider as well. And if you have any insights to any of the questions I'm asking my guests tonight, again, email me, dave@paranormal60.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the things that I bring up. And if you think that we're onto something or we should be put away, I want to hear from you either way. But let me know your thoughts and put them in the comments below on YouTube while you're watching this, or send me the email, dave@paranormal60. I'd love to get your insights on these topics as we go along. Do you ever have to like drag the souls into the light, kicking and screaming, Kevin? Are they seeking you out because they want some help, they want relief, and they finally want to get rid of the tether that's holding them here?
Both. I say this gift is a job that I never applied for and I never wanted. I was kind of forced into doing it. And over the years, I've learned to love the fact that I can help somebody move from this kind of stuck place to the other world. And it can be a super emotional ride as well. Like there'll be some that I'll cross over, and days later, I'll literally just burst out a tear in my car thinking about that particular soul. But to answer that question, yes, I've had one that I've worked with before, probably a few months ago. And, you know, a lot of the times I'll actually see them move through their light, but not always. And this particular one, I did not see that individual move through the light. And I came back into my house because I won't do that stuff in the house. I actually go out in the yard and do it. And I saw them literally pop their head right into the window of the door right here. I'm like, that was 15 minutes ago. They didn't go. I had to go back outside, call in my guides again and say, please help escort this soul over and start the process all over again. That individual was scared, even though the light was there and the prayers were done, all the things that I could possibly do, they were still scared to make that move.
Or they're like my wife. They'll go out. Okay, I got to head out. I go into the store. They walk out the door and come back in 3 seconds later because they forgot their wallet. And then they leave. And then they come back in because they left their keys on the counter when they came in to get their wallet. And then they leave. And then they come back in because they forgot to figure out which cat food we're supposed to get today. So maybe the ghosts are just forgetful and they want to remember that they're taking everything with them. But in all honesty and in sincerity too, there's a lot of people that are watching right now or listening. They go to places like Gettysburg. They go to these places of tragedy. I've been to Auschwitz. I've been to some of these places that are really dark. And I know it could impact and affect my emotions. Standing over Pearl Harbor, standing over the Arizona, I just burst into tears. The emotion was so overwhelming, and I don't feel any of it was mine. I feel like I became a conduit for those souls. What's a good way for people to make sure that when they go there, that they're able to have an experience, but that they don't let it impact and affect them going forward? Maybe that's a good way to end on this, Kevin, as we wrap up.
I think a lot of it has to do with how excited they may be to be in a moment, whether it's at a monument like Pearl Harbor or at a haunted location. I was just on Saturday at Wyoming Frontier Prison. Just ran up there on a whim for a little public ghost hunt, and I had a lady and her daughter that were kind of working with me and walking around a little bit. And the daughter was so into everything that was happening. She got scratched early in the night. It's fine with her. She thought it was a badge of honor. She went under the Estes and was popping out names. There was a name that I told her mother that I picked up on in the first location, and the daughter gets under the Estes method and spits out that name. So it kind of depends on the individual, but what I would say for anybody that goes into a haunted location or any place that you might think may have spirits, even though they're not so-called haunted, is that one, you show respect to the spirits, but you also ask them kindly to stay where they are, that you're not in a position to help them, but hopefully another person that is can come by and help them, but please don't follow me home. So that's the biggest thing. So a lot of people tend to bring things home with them, especially people that are a little bit new in the field because they don't quite understand how all that works. A lot of these spirits, they're not necessarily attaching to you, but they see that you might be a place of hope for them to get out of this kind of realm that they're in.
But there's also just that element of you're standing in that tragedy yourself, and we're human, and we're dealing with our own negativity, and it is resonating maybe at that same level, right? And then it kind of attracts that energy to us. You can tell the ghosts stay behind, but how do you break free from the energy that's not ghostly intelligent, but just emotionally scarring from that area? Is there something that you find that is really good to, take a bath in salt water, smudge yourself? Is there something like that?
There's a multitude of things. For me, just a little bit of kind of light meditation to understand that, hey, I understand the feelings that you're imposing upon me. And, we give a little prayer to them. But, yes, smudging helps. It depends on your location, a little Palo Santo too. But I think acknowledgement is one thing. If you can verbalize the acknowledgement of what you're feeling for that particular space and those that may be there, then sometimes that alone says, well, they've acknowledged me. I know he says he can't help, but he's acknowledged me and my pain. So we'll wait for the next person that comes by.
All right. Kevin, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. We appreciate your visit.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it.
And give my best to Jonathan. Tell him the Northern Night says hello to the Southern Sun.
He is in Mansfield right now hunting with some of the Foreman brothers.
I'm going to be there in a couple weeks. I'm going to miss him. Jeez, I'm just a couple weeks off on that. We'll give him my best. Would you, Kevin?
I'll do it. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Take care, my friend. And remember, get a copy of the book, folks. Lost Souls of Gettysburg, Battlefields and Beyond. There's something about a place like Gettysburg that doesn't let you just walk away unchanged. Maybe it's the scale of it, the sheer weight of what happened there during the Battle of Gettysburg. Or maybe it's something quieter, something harder to define. Because when we talk about hauntings, about echoes and residual energy, footsteps in empty fields, we can get caught up in the mystery of it, the intrigue and the experience. But tonight feels more like something different. Tonight's a reminder that, I don't know, behind every encounter, every unexplained sound, every shadow, every lingering presence, there were real people, real lives interrupted, stories left unfinished, families forever altered. And what we sometimes label as paranormal might, in places like this, simply be memory refusing to disappear. Maybe that is the part that matters most. Not just asking what is happening, but why it still matters. Because if these moments are replaying, if the land is holding on to something, then maybe it's not about fear. Maybe it's just about the acknowledgement, about respect, about understanding that history isn't just written in books. It's written in blood, embedded in the ground beneath our feet. And voices like Kevin Lynn help us approach that with the right balance. Curiosity without exploitation. Investigation without losing sight of the humanity behind it all. So as we close out tonight, maybe the question isn't whether Gettysburg is haunted. Maybe the real question is, what does it mean if it is? And how do we choose to listen? In a country where we're torn apart again right now, brother against brother, sister against sister, friend against friend, over beliefs, maybe this is the time that history echoes loudest and wants us to remember the danger in fighting against each other and the importance of coming together. I hope that you have a great rest of your night, my darklings. And until Wednesday, be safe, be peaceful, and thank you for taking me along on your journey here on our Paranormal 60.